today I'd like to talk about making tight or loose pots, and every potter has to ask that question or deal with that at some point. And tight pots, I would think, are the pots that are very well defined, very consciously made and articulated. Loose pots tend to be much more letting the clay do its own thing and sort of celebrating the plasticity of clay or the properties of clay. You find this in other materials, even or mediums, certainly in dance with classical ballet, or sort of the counterpoint being sort of improvisational modern dance, and certainly in painting where you have abstract painting and then you'll have someone doing sort of almost photo representational paintings in some way. So I've always asked myself the question about tight pots or loose pots and find myself gravitating between one or the other, or sometimes a combination of the both. So I'm, in this case, making a bowl, then at some point deciding I wanted to make this bowl out of center and make it asymmetrical. And in doing so, I just took this edge and dropped this down, crimped the bottom. So when this pot's done, I actually make a sort of a plumb bob shape here and acts as a counterweight to push this over. And then when I glaze the pot, sometimes I do some sort of graphics on the inside that sort of in some way repeats the form itself. So there is this space of sort of being in control and out of control, and you certainly, a lot of potters make pots with gesture, which is sort of very intentional, but it's still sort of celebrating the plasticity of clay. And I've always liked that scenario or analogy of thinking of dinner time, like maybe at Thanksgiving, where everything is so nicely set up in the beginning of the meal, and there's this real sense of presentation. But then 2 hours later, when the gravy boat's been spilt and the wine's been spilt and there's food all everywhere, there's a sense of representation. So that idea of presentation and representation is something that's explored in art and certainly in pots. And that pot certainly has a sense of gesture because of the way the rib was used. Now this idea of being sort of out of control or something really loose, this is really wet, very wet clay, and you normally don't ever put a ball of clay on the wheel or center it like this, but there's really, in the end, no rules. So I'm throwing with super wet clay here. And I think it would be a real experience to drink out of a cup like this, and maybe add a little sort of detritus as a handle. But you would probably remember drinking out of a cup like this, where most cups might not be so memorable. So thank you for your time. And move this up the side of the pot. Whoa! Very quickly. And that certainly has some gesture to it. They normally don't pop up that way. We might use that. We might.